All right, cool. Thanks for coming down. My name is Jarrad. I'm from the Status Network. You might be familiar with us from doing a sort of super application with a primary focus on decentralized messaging. But we actually work on the entire Web3 stack. So we work on like Nimbus, which is our Ethereum 2.0 clients. We have the application, of course. We have a hardware wallet in a debit card form factor called Keycard. And today I'm talking to you about our DApp developer tooling, Embark. So basically Embark is the all-in-one DApp development framework to build truly decentralized applications. It's actually brought to you by Yuri, who is the second largest contributor to Remix. In many ways, Embark is a spiritual successor to Remix. You can also download it at npm install g-embark, but you can also use it locally in your own project for per-project versioning, and go check out the docs as well. So DApp development is actually really, really hard. I'm sure if you've had a chance to work on that. Actually, how many people have used Embark for? Show of hands. Okay, cool. So basically, if you've done any DApp development before, you realize that setting up an environment is quite difficult, getting all the services running, making sure that your contracts actually deploy to your blockchain work. It becomes quite tedious. And what we really want to do is reduce that friction down so you can just focus on what you're trying to do without having to worry about setting up your environment or doing anything else. We really want to tighten the loop to iteration so you can just constantly focus on your code and don't have to worry about anything else. But there's also another philosophy behind Embark. We try to stay true to the Web3 vision. Because DApp development is so hard today, a lot of the DApps that are coming out are essentially Web 2.5, right? They're still using some kind of server-side architecture. They're not really truly decentralized. So we try to stay true to the holy trinity as foreseen by Web3, which is distributed consensus, which you find in your blockchain, messaging, which is kind of like a Whisper, and decentralized file storage is where you want to be hosting your application interfaces. So before I get into Embark, I just want to let you know what can you actually do with it. We actually generate a bunch of other dApps that you might not be familiar with, and they've all been built with Embark. The latest one that we've done is a fiat to crypto exchange that's entirely decentralized. That means once it's deployed, it can't be shut down, and there's no intermediaries. This is called the Teller Network. It basically allows you to find peer-to-peer ATMs using your friends, family, and that sort of thing. Status contributors actually also have a meritocracy in which it's kind of like a locking game to give other people kudos, or reward them for good behavior and things that you think they've done really well, in the sense that you can't actually withdraw unless you've already contributed to other people as well. Andy, Crypto Wanderer, has also just finished his amazing curation market. It's like a DApp store, but it's on a token bonding curve. And again, it is actually hosted on a web server, but you could deploy it to IPFS just as easily, no problem. And of course, if we have any major decisions that we want to do within Status, we do this by quadratic voting. So we have a voting DApp for that as well. And all of this was built really easily with Embark. So let's get started. There's pretty much three major ways that you want to get started with Embark and creating your new DApp. Basically, you type Embark new and then your DApp name. If you want to use a specific template or something that's different from the default framework, that's pretty easy. All you need to do is point to a GitHub repository, and if you're using, or a Git repository, and if you're using GitHub, then you can use a shorthand syntax like that, including the branch that you want to use. If you don't care about making like a full-fledged DApp and you're only focusing on contracts, just hit up contracts only. And if you're new and you have no ideas at the moment, type in Embark demo and it'll create like a demo DApp for you to just run and see how it works. So once you run that, you cd into your DApp directory and you have one command that pretty much automates everything that you possibly need. Just type in Embark run and you'll see this. Fear not, if you're not a command line junkie, don't worry, I've got something really good for you. But here you'll see that it sets up all your services, whether it's Geth, IPFS, a web server, Whisper, you name it. It all comes up, it then runs your tests and deploys all of your contracts to the locally running blockchain. And then you are given this console. In this console, you can pretty much type in any command that you want. If you want to interact with your contracts, you can. If you want to type in help, you see a bunch of other stuff, including access to like the Web3 object and all that other fancy stuff. And if you're a command line junkie, then you can just move to your Vim or whatever you like to code in and just happily be on your way. But there's actually a lot more to Embark than that. So if you're working in a team or you just prefer a web interface, then you want to be running what's called Cockpit. And this allows you to collaborate if you put it onto like a VPS with your team to work on your DApp. This is essentially the same screen as the command line version. So you can see your web services at the top there. You have your Embark sort of console. You can also switch over to see the blockchain outputs. And below there, you can see the deployed contracts as well. So let's get together and see what it's like to actually develop a DApp with Embark. The first thing you want to do is head over to the web-based IDE, right? And this is what you'll be presented with. So on the left here, you will see the file structure. This is basically all your resources, your contracts, the configurations, everything you possibly need. In the middle, it's your main code editor. And on the right-hand side, you have your real-time refreshing iframe for viewing your DApp. And this becomes really, really easy to start coding in because anytime you change your source assets, it's automatically refreshed. The tests that you've written are automatically run, and the contracts are redeployed every time you modify them. So it all happens really seamlessly, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Click. Okay, so if you want to make a decentralized Reddit, scan that QR code, and you'll be given one of our tutorials on how to build a Reddit without any infrastructure aside from running on these decentralized protocols. And here we've just tried to submit our first Reddit post. Unfortunately, we've seen some kind of transaction reversion. Uh-oh, we now need to fix this. Thankfully, Embark comes with a debugger, and this allows us to inspect the transaction without ever leaving our environment and make it super, super easy. So this is pretty much what it looks like. We'll go up to the top right and we'll hit the debugger. Oh, sorry, the logger. Now the logger will basically show you every call and every send transaction that's happened to that contract. Whether you've done that in the interface or by the command line or just interacting with your DApp. Now you'll see there's, next to the dReddit create method that was called, we see debug. So we can now hit that and see what's actually gone wrong. But before I do, just want to also point out that it's super easy to filter this log, whether it's by functions in your contract, events, or even the current status of those transactions. So we hit debug, and immediately it's taken us to the violating line. It's highlighted in blue here, and we know that our require has some kind of issue. On the left-hand side, on my left-hand side, there's the state as it currently is in both the globals and in the local function. Super easy to inspect. You can then basically step through your code and see what the flow is like, or jump back, rewind, do all the sort of debuggering things. Here you can see we've actually got equals to 0 of the IPFS hash length. That's obviously wrong. So we can basically modify that. What will then happen is as soon as we hit save, it'll redeploy, run the tests, and we can try again, and it works, no problems. This all happens super, super quickly, dead easy. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, hold on, I haven't written my user interface yet. I've only just got my contracts going. I want to be focusing on that. So basically what you can do is you can access your contracts in multiple different ways. First, you can do it via the user interface. It generates the entire UI off your ABI. super easy to call, type in parameters, that sort of thing. You can also access it directly from the command line interface, whether it's on the website or by command line. Embark also includes a full blockchain explorer that has deep linking. It has pretty much everything that you could possibly need. So here's your overview of your accounts, the blocks, the recent blocks, the transactions, that sort of thing. And you can pretty much inspect anything that you want. Here's a couple of screenshots on that. So account. So here you see your particular accounts and the transactions that are following that. You can then inspect the transactions. Yeah. Blocks with the little transactions in it, and the transactions as well. Also, Embark comes with built-in Ethereum name service support, so you don't need to actually deal with ENS in any major way. It'll automatically deploy a local instance for you on the chain if you need it. And it's just super easy using Embark.js to look up or any particular hash or string. And if you're in development mode, it's also super easy to register ENS names in your deployment scripts or however you want to configure your environment. So as I've been mentioning a couple of times, every time you're working, your tests are being run in the background, and you can see if there's violations or not. And Embark will obviously warn you if that's the case. But it also comes with a code coverage utility. So with code coverage, you can essentially be assured that at least your tests are running through all of your code. And that way, if you realize that there's some parts of your code that need to be run or at least accessed during those tests, you'll become aware of them. It'll also show you the various violations as well. Embark also does document generation for you, so if you do like to document your code, I highly recommend you should. It'll do so. It'll also generate graphs of all the interactions between your contracts as well. Now, Embark comes with a whole suite of different plugins, but the most important ones are doing security. Obviously, when you're deploying smart contracts, they might be published on the blockchain for life, hopefully, and you might not have the same access control to them as you would in a normal web application. So it's super critical that we try to make these as safety critical as possible. So Embark basically allows you to run over a whole suite of static analysis and security tools to ensure that your code doesn't actually have any major vulnerabilities that are kind of well known. So there's 3 major plugins at the moment, one from Trailbits, MythX, and FLint as well. Another thing is Embark obviously makes it super easy to deploy, since part of that iteration cycle is deploying your contracts every time. But if you're ready to go mainnet, you can have a separate mainnet environment, but you can also selectively deploy your contracts from within the user interface at any time. At the same time, Embark makes it super easy to publish to Etherscan by flattening all your source code and putting it onto Etherscan for you, depending on whatever address. Which is super nice if you need some sort of social proof or validation in your deployed contracts. And we've done a lot of work in terms of documentation for Embark. So if you're a newcomer to dApps, you should come over to our docs. We have a whole bunch of tutorials, really easy to get started building dApps. And if you're a seasoned pro, there's plenty of references as well if you need to look anything up. And one other thing is Embark is essentially changing for the future. Because the reason we created Embark and building it is because we want to see an ecosystem of decentralized applications out there. But we recognize that this is quite hard to do. So what we want to do is set up coordinations with the Ethereum Community Fund and basically create mini DAOs around very goal-specific dApps. So you can imagine us coordinating community initiatives getting people together to build out certain ways of taking back the web. So I mentioned decentralized Reddit. That's basically one of the first things that we're going to do. But we can think about creating alternatives to other famous web properties and really start bringing users over into this decentralized infrastructure. This is a mission that I'd love to invite you on. You're more than welcome to, and I hope you'll hear more of that and contribute to it in the future. So you might have noticed that I've kind of glossed all over the code because I am presenting it on the behalf of these wonderful people. There's a whole bunch of other things that I haven't even scratched the surface of, but I'm running out of time. But essentially, everything is entirely scriptable. Embark is highly modular, so it's super flexible for any kind of project that you need. And if you want to contribute, there's the GitHub repository. And I just want to say a massive thank you to all the guys that have been involved in building it out. So I guess I just want to take this time now to see if anyone had any particular questions or if there's any sort of feature requests or any community initiative ideas. Anyone at all? Oh, yeah. I think there's one over there.
The mechanisms that were being implemented in the status, is there any restriction that we could use that these kind of mechanisms are not rooted out of the status platform? Because what I could see is there are a lot of really nice implementations, but I could see them being stolen or being used in other platforms with already network effects. Is there any way to protect about that?
I mean, so this is, so the question, you're asking whether this is locked into the sort of status network or status platform? I mean, this is entirely open source. You can download it, you can run it yourself. Like, this is for you. We don't host this. We don't want to host this.
Okay.
So yeah, you can totally do it with however you want. It's just a tool. Yeah, and aside from that, like, it uses any kind of EVM-compatible blockchain. So we're building this for Ethereum, obviously, but of course you can use it with any other blockchain that you want. Yeah, it's literally DApp development framework, that's all. Cool. All right, cool, thank you very much.